All right, so interestingly enough, when we look at today's installment of the words of the Master, it kind of goes along with this thought. So let's go over to the book of John. Let's go to the book of John, chapter 2. John, the Gospel according to John, chapter 2, and let's read verses 13 through 22.
And the Pesach of the Yudim was near, and Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. And when he found a set-apart place, those selling in the set-apart place, those selling oxen and sheep and doves, and the money changers setting. And having made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the set-apart place with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the money changers' coins, and overturned the tables. And he said to those selling doves, "Take these away. Do not make the house of my Father a house of merchandise." Mm-hmm. And his top ones, remember that it is written, "They adorn for your house has eaten me up." And the Yudim answered and said to him, "What sign do you show to us, since you are doing these?" Yeshua answered and said to them, "Destroy this dwelling place, and in 3 days I shall raise it." And Yudim said, "It took 46 years to build this dwelling place, and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But he spoke about the dwelling place of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his top ones remembered that he said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Yeshua had said.
Okay, all right, very good. So let us look at a few things. We want to talk about both the actual words of the Master, the actual words that Messiah spoke here, and also kind of the background, the situation that we see here. First of all, it's interesting that we see here it's Passover time, right? We see that it says at verse 13 here, he said it's Pesach. It's Pesach. Well, it was near. It was that time. And so when we think about the feast days typically, these times should really be a heightened sense of the things that are pictured within each particular feast. Let's go over to Deuteronomy 16. Deuteronomy 16 through 17. Deuteronomy 16, verse 16 through 17. Because here, just read the verse. And I'll say.
3 times a year, all your males appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place which he chooses at the festival of Mitzvot, and at the festival of Shavuot, and at the festival of Sukkot. And none of these should appear before Yahweh empty-handed, but each one with the gift of his hand according to the blessing of Yahweh Elohim, which he has given you.
Okay, so we have what is the pilgrimage feasts, the time that you actually go up to Jerusalem, right? Which was what we're looking at over in John chapter 2 when it is Passover time. But I'm talking about the fact that at these times, at these set apart times, at whatever particular feast it is, there within the feast it gives you this heightened sense of the thing that's associated with the feast. Like if we start at the end here, Sukkot, right? In Sukkot, we think about set apartness, isolation from the world, right? At a heightened sense, we have this. This is what we do in our everyday life. We're set apart. We're isolated from the world. But at Sukkot, like we go somewhere to this place, this temporary dwelling, right? And so we have at that time this heightened sense of, this thing that we naturally do, that we regularly do in our set apart lives. With Shavuot, it is this time of spiritual refinement. Well, we wouldn't say that we just, think about refining ourselves spiritually at Shavuot. It's just a time that there's a heightened sense of that at that time. And so the same thing is true when we think about Pesach. Thinking back to John chapter 2. The same thing is true when we think about Pesach, where, at Pesach is this time of examining yourself, right? Pesach is this time when we remove the leaven from our lives. Not the only time we do it, but a heightened sense of us doing that. When we cause the leaven to cease in our situations. And so imagine Yeshua, who's in Pesach mode, when he's ready to experience a heightened sense of set apartness and the ceasing of leaven in his life, when he rolls up to the temple and sees what he sees. Like he's so mad that he makes a ready-made whip. Like, what's the skill set that's involved in just randomly, I'm about to whip these people and then make a whip? Like,
well, he was a carpenter, so he was dealing with wood already, so you can make a switch and put something together.
Wait, he made a switch.
Well, it was cords, I don't know. Ain't no video.
You said he made a switch. That's like an entendre. So he switched. He made a switch to making a switch.
Yeah.
But not like an off and on switch, but like a switch for the hind parts. He made a whip. He was so mad at these people because it was a time of holiness. It was a time of set apartness. And he goes up into this place and he sees these people over here. And the thing that they're sitting up here doing is selling this stuff. Selling oxen and sheep and doves. And the money changers. They're sitting. Money changers. It's like when you go to the casino, you cash in your chips and get your money back. The money changers here, if you have your things, you have your things back home. You can't. It's a pilgrimage feast. You can't bring your whole things up to the temple. And so while you're home, you get your things turned into money. You bring the money there, and then it's kind of a reverse thing. And you take your money, and then you get your money turned back into whatever it was whenever you left back. It's not magic, kids. It's just trade, right? The money is not actually turning into animals. It's a trade, right? Then they have their offering, and then they can go and offer the thing. But it's the way in which they're performing these deeds that were like right had turned into business. It had turned into business. And, you know, the Most High's place is his home, his temple, the place where his presence resides, is not a place of business. And so it's interesting that we see here Yeshua quickly moving into the mode of judge. It's interesting that when we look at Yeshua, when he is in the his ministry, there's not many times where we see where he operates in the role of judge, right? Typically, he's the servant. He's the one that he goes around and he serves and he helps and he deals in a particular way. But we see here where Yeshua has in fact shown us a picture of another aspect that he holds, that of judge. Let's look over in 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 10. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 10. Read that for us, too.
For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Yeshua. Oh, no, my bad. I'm in a different different version. For we all have to appear before the judgment seat of Messiah, in order for each one to receive according to what he has done in the body, whether good or evil.
Okay, it's interesting when we look at some of the ways that Messiah does. He does a thing, he doesn't really talk about it, he doesn't really explain it. And then when we see the apostle, mainly Paul, and these teachings that he has when he's talking about the judgment seat of Messiah, which is dealing with a mode of Messiah that is future. But Messiah's shown us, little trailers, little tidbits of himself as being a judge, like what we just looked at over in John chapter 2. But it's going to be necessary for each and every one of us to go before the judgment seat of Messiah and have to answer for all of the things that we have done in our life, whether it be good or evil. Let's look at Ecclesiastes 11. Ecclesiastes 11, chapter 11, verse 9. I'll read that for us there.
It says, "Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart gladden you in the days of your youth, and walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these Elohim brings you into right ruling."
Okay, right ruling or judgment. Right? Or judgment. Here, let's look at something here. Let's see if we're able to do this here. I'll get it figured out sooner or later. We're looking at verse 9. we can see this is an interesting verse where the writer is saying to the young man, live your life. Do what you got to do. But no, while you out there living your life, there's going to come a time when you're going to have to be judged on that life that you lived. So hopefully, the life that you live, you are able to understand that there's going to be some answering that is going to happen for that life. It's all going to be brought into judgment. It's all going to be brought into mishpat. Right? There's going to be a verdict connected to this life that you are in fact living. So I don't know what's going on here with this. Hold on. This is what. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this word here, mishpat, right? A sentence, a decree, a formal decree, judgment, right? Let's look at another verse that also gives us this idea of judgment. Understanding that Messiah is, in fact, the judge. Even though when we see him walking around on the earth, he just gives us little snippets of his role as judgment. But we see over in John chapter 2 that he let those people know he's just a guy. He's not a ruler in Israel. He's not a Levite. He doesn't have any position in the temple. But he judged those within the temple. Those people who was temple work, they was there working in the temple at the people who run the temple was like, y'all go over here and do this. And Messiah comes in and judges the whole situation, right? Let's look at, go ahead.
You would think that like they need to have an animal to sacrifice.
They do need that.
They had to have just not been doing what they're supposed to do.
They were, when you think about sin is when you take a necessary, regular, permissible thing and do it wrong. That's what sin is. You're doing something that you could be doing that exact same thing right and it'd be good. There's no example of sin. I just was about to say, well, I don't know how you rightly do false witness, but you could just do a good witness, right? Murder, I guess there's not really an opposite of murder, really, but. Okay. War, right? You can kill someone and it be justified. When you think about sin, what it is you're doing a thing, a right thing, you're doing it in an inordinate way. So yes, of course, they need money changers, but the way they were doing it, they just went too far left. They just went out the window. You think about, you go to these places and, you have these various authors, they write their biblical books, and they have, much wisdom and whatnot inside of their biblical books. And you go to visit a group and you're there and, there's a vending table outside in the Shabbat. I mean, the things that's inside of the book are things that are teaching you about rightness. But then you're selling it on the Shabbat. There's something wrong with that. Right? You're doing a right thing, you're doing it wrongly. Right? I mean, there's a way here. Take this, maybe an IOU or something. I don't know.
Brain check till it's over.
Yeah, yeah, and put like a time on it or something. I don't know. There's got to be a right way to do it. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm saying I can say what a wrong way to do would be. And
Is that what protocol?
huh?
Is that what protocol you told me to pay them right there?
Yeah, it's just one of those things, right? And so when we think about Messiah, let's read this. Let's read these verses here. Let's look at Isaiah 9, 6 through 7. Oh, I'm not even looking at that. Hold on one second. Oh, sorry, I wasn't even looking at these comments here. They had a whole shopping mall being held at the temple. Yes. Sin. Sin is transgression of the law. Yes, sin is transgression of the law. And then, just what I was simply saying, when you take that even a step further, you're dealing with the law, it's dealing with how to live in a way that's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so to transgress a way that's living right is to get into sin. Right? I can be a single person and strongly desire another single person that's of the opposite sex as me. You gotta say all that, right? I can strongly desire, I can covet as a single person another single person that's not what I am. Right? But when that person belongs to someone else, now we got some problems. Or when the person is the same as me, we got problems there too. Right? So I'm taking a thing that the Most High set up, say we're supposed to live like XYZ, and I live like LGBT.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
I don't know where that
That's a
came from.
YouTube
That was
short
a-
right
that was
there.
that just came out of the sky.
That was a good one.
Okay, so let's see Isaiah 9, 6 and 7.
For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonder, Counselor, Strong Elf, Father of Continuity, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule and peace, there is no end upon the throne of David and over his reign, to establish it and sustain it with right ruling and with righteousness from now on, even forever. The order of Yahweh of hosts does this.
Okay, very good. So we see what I wanted to call attention to is two things. The rule is on his shoulder. The rule is on his shoulder. The government, what's it saying in King? Sometimes in King James it's just better. And the government shall be upon his shoulders. The things that set up, that regulate rightness in the world is on his shoulder. The government, the dominion, the empire is on his shoulder. But we talk about Yeshua though. And so over here, Yeshua knows this. He knows that he's the judge. He knows when he sees these things that are going on that are out of order, that he is this one that is speaking of in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6 and 7, and he just has to put on his judge outfit for a moment. And so it's interesting when we look over here at Messiah, who again, he doesn't always operate in this mode, because when we deal with this, it's speaking of Messiah, but it's speaking of him in his fullness. So it's giving you parts of the things that we see when he walks the earth the first time, but then it's also giving you parts of when he will walk the earth the second time, and when he literally will be the known King of Kings. Because right now we know that he's the King of Kings, but everybody don't know.
No. They're going to find out.
They going like these people. They found out. They didn't know. Like this whole thing is prophetic. The people are acting in a way, and they didn't know that the king was right in their mix, and they was acting however they wanted to act, not knowing that judgment soon come on them. And then that's what happened. That could very well be what happens to people like you and I. We're living our lives. We're doing things that we in our own hearts think is right. And then lo and behold, the judge is right there and judge us.
Let me say something.
Go ahead. Nice and loud.
Sometimes, now, people who don't have the spirit, they don't know sometimes who you're talking to. It's like someone will be talking to me about like something like crazy wickedness, and it's like, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, excuse me, it's like people sometimes don't know that sometimes there's a righteous person in the room. You know what I mean? Because they're kind of in their zone. And so these people didn't realize that the one that's supposed to be receiving these offerings is right here looking at you. Like, and so see what he had to say that right with them.
Yeah.
Let them know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's interesting when we look at this again. When we look at back in John chapter 2, when we look at verse 13 and 14 and 15 even, we see what Messiah does. We see what he did. Didn't talk yet. But we're able to look and see his actions. Right, which are important because he didn't even have to speak, and already we're able to see and understand the idea that Yeshua is in fact judge. He is in fact the judge of all. Right, when we look over here, we see that. Go back over to John chapter 2. Let's look at some other things over here. Let's go down. Let's see here. Let's go down to. Let's read again verse 14 and 15. Just read again there.
Okay. And he found in the set apart place those selling oxen and sheep and doves, and the money changers sitting. And having made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the set apart place with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables.
Okay, very good. So it's interesting when we look at Messiah and his reaction to what was going on here in the temple. And so it causes for us to think about the idea of, again, just like how we were thinking about earlier when we talked about the Torah portion in regards to this mixture of, the holy and the unholy, right? When we think about the idea of being committed to the Most High fully, right? And so these people, they're at the temple. They're there in this place of worship. However, they're bringing into the house of the Most High, they're bringing the world in. They've brought the world into the temple of the Most High. And so when we get down to 16, here, read 16 again with his actual words. Here, let me go ahead and put this up here.
And he said to those selling doves, take these away. Do not make the house of my father a house of merchandise.
He says over here that the things that they were doing, again, we have to understand that there was obviously just some inordinate tweaking that happened with what they were doing. Maybe the thing that they had set up was the thing that was right, but they tweaked it in such a way where they were doing this right thing and causing it to be an utter abomination, because Messiah, who literally was known for, his gentleness and turning the other cheek and all of this softness as it relates to many things.
Right.
But when it comes to the Most High, when it comes to the things of the Almighty, he wasn't playing no games. You wasn't going to be up in the house of the Most High disrespecting what they obviously was up in there doing, and he just wasn't having it. He switched up the whole situation. Take these things away. Don't make my father's house into this place of merchandise. And so it's interesting, even when we think about the timing, because the way that we're looking at all of these things here in terms of these words of Messiah is kind of in a progressive, kind of chronological situation. Messiah, he comes on the scene. He gets immersed by John the Baptist. He goes out, he gets disciples. He goes to this wedding and he does a miracle. This is early in his thing, right? He hasn't even made a name for himself at this point in the game. They're like, who's this guy? This country boy coming down here, right? Because again, they're up in the city, right? Where he's from is, he's out in the outskirts. Who's this guy? They don't even know who this is, really. But when it comes to the things of the Most High, he isn't playing no games. And so it's interesting when we look at verse 17, the thing that this causes the disciples, that it causes the disciples to think about. Read verse 17 there for us.
And his top ones remembered that it was written, the order of your house has eaten me up.
The ardor of your house, the zeal of your house has eaten me up. And so we experience this zealousness of the Messiah here. But he's doing it in relation to the temple. And so he's showing us something else. He's showing us something else that Paul talks about later. Again, Yeshua don't have a lesson here about the temple of the Most High. But he teaches us some things over here. Let's look over at 1 Corinthians chapter 6. First Corinthians 6. Chapter 3. 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17.
16, 17? Or you say 15?
16 and 17.
Okay. Do you not know that you are a dwelling place of Elohim, and that the spirit of Elohim dwells in you. If anyone destroys the dwelling place of Elohim, Elohim shall destroy him. For the dwelling place of Elohim is set apart, which you are.
Okay, very good. So when we think about the way that Messiah here is dealing with the temple being, by all intents and purposes, desecrated and not given its proper respect. Messiah, is showing this reverence for the temple of Elohim. Paul now, which Messiah gets to later on, but here in 1 Corinthians 3 and 16, Paul talks about the fact that our body, you, are the place where the spirit of Elohim dwells. The spirit of Elohim dwells in you. And so if we think back to what we just talked about in terms of Pharaoh and Moses, with Messiah working inside of us, speaking to the inner man, or if we think about us as being the body of Messiah, this fact, this knowledge that we have, this facts of the matter that exists in our lives should be a thing that dictates the way that we live. If I am the dwelling place of Elohim, the temple of Elohim, there's places that I'm just not supposed to be at.
Yeah.
If I'm the dwelling place of Elohim, there's things that I'm just not even supposed to be participating in. If I am, in fact, the dwelling place of Elohim. And I think this is the whole reason why Paul is even saying this thing over here. Like, this is the strength behind the words that he's speaking. Don't you know that you're the temple of Elohim? You should be acting like this. You should be doing this. You should be saying this. You shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't be going here. You shouldn't be making the temple of the Most High into a place of merchandise. Right? Messiah was bringing judgment to the situation that was going on that shouldn't have been going on. So Messiah in you, there's times when Messiah in you is going to have to flip some tables inside of you.
Yep.
And cause for there to be a shift in the way that you're doing things. You're going this way, Messiah in you, you're going to be flipping some tables and making some belts out of something and getting you in order. Because there is a matter of fact that exists that you are the dwelling place of Elohim. You got no business doing this. You got no business doing that because of who and what you are. Messiah was teaching us that in his actions over there. Let's go over to 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10. 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10. We're talking about Yeshua flipping tables over here and whipping butts. I love Messiah. I want to be just like him. That's why I whoop butts. Messiah whoop butts. And I want to be just like Messiah. That's why I be whooping butts. It's like, no. Oh my goodness. Read 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10.
But you are a chosen race, a royal.
Hold on 1 second. This thing is telling you all different kinds of ways what you are in Messiah. If you're not satisfied with one way, he got all these different other ways that he's able to describe what, in fact, you are in Messiah. He said, you're chosen. You're a set-apart race, he said. What else did he say?
A royal priesthood.
He said that you're not only are you a chosen race, but you're also a royal priesthood. Just think about like the natural. It's hard for us to kind of understand the monarchy and all of this kings and stuff that's in fact. But when you see like when I see anyway, the news and people crossing lines that exist that, you know, they come from another culture and maybe they touch, like you can't touch the queen.
Right.
The queen can touch you,
Yeah.
but you can't initiate touching of the queen. Like there's a protocol.
Right.
When we met the king of Togo, he gave us a book that had in it the protocol for your majesty, right? Because I guess it's not common knowledge to know how to interact with royalty. But when you live in a culture where you understand royalty, this, for those people who may have known of a king, when you think about all of these things, this is a thing that this verse here is something that's encouraging
Yeah.
to the people. I can understand, like me in my world, I'm able to understand chosenness, right? Being this set apart, special person. I can think about what it means to be royal, but I don't personally understand it. But it's not only the idea of royalty, but it's a royal priesthood that he's speaking about. What else is he talking about over there?
Set apart nation.
A set apart nation. Keep on going.
A people for a possession that you should proclaim to praise of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
Okay, so he said all of that: chosen race, royal priesthood, set apart nation, people for a possession that you should, because of all of these things, you should proclaim the praise of him who called you out of darkness into his most marvelous light. So because of your status, you should proclaim the praises of him. You should behave in a particular way because of your connection to the Most High and who and what you are. And so when we look over back in John chapter 2, and we see Messiah's up in the tabernacle, he's looking around, he's where he's at. There should be people behaving in a particular way, and they're not behaving in that way. He had to make an adjustment. The same thing when we think about when we understand these things: chosen race, royal priesthood, set apart nation, people of a possession. That's supposed to cause us to proclaim the praises of Messiah. Because you was in darkness. And now you're not only not in darkness, but you're in light. But you're not only just in light, you're in marvelous. Like, oh my goodness. You're not only in marvelous light, but you're in his marvelous light. Because I'm sure there could be some light that's marvelous, but it's his marvelous light.
His marvelous light.
So it's like a sandwich. You got things on the front and the back.
So now that makes you in light 10. There you go. You're out of darkness now. You're in light.
You're out of darkness. He brought you out. You was in darkness. Now you're in light.
You're shining light.
Here, let's look at something else. Let's look at Timothy. Let's look at Titus. I said Timothy. Let's look at Titus. Titus 2:11. Let me find my cursor here. Titus. We still talk about Yeshua. Yeshua is teaching the people how they supposed to deal with the temple. But we understand later that you are the temple. And so there's a correlation between the way in which the Most High, the way in which Messiah reverenced this place. There's a correlation between that and you in your conduct, actions, your ways. Titus 2:11 through 15.
For the saving gift of Elohim has appeared to all men.
Hold on, let's just stop right there. When we look at this right here, the saving gift of Elohim, who in fact is Messiah, appeared to all men. Now it's interesting when we look at this, it's just a word that means to appear. But look at what this word means here. This word here is translated as appeared. Where's my cursor? Here. This is some Greek word that means to shine upon. To shine upon. It literally means to shine upon. That's what light does, right? This, for the saving gift of Elohim has shone to all men. Right? And we think about again this idea of what it is. Hold on, what's this say over here? I just seen the word light. Righteous judgment requires an intimate, illuminated knowledge of the Creator, things that only priests and royalty in the temple would know. We have to learn Him and what His light is. Okay, very good. I like that. Thank you very much. 1 Corinthians 6:5-1 says that to move you to shame. Isn't there even one wise man among you who will be able to decide between his brothers? When we walk in the light, when we actually become the light, because He took us out of darkness into His marvelous light, which His light is enveloping and transformative and changes us, it should call for us to walk in a particular way. And so when we think about Titus 2, for the saving gift of Elohim, who is Messiah, has appeared to all men, there's things that have happened to those that have seen and experienced this gift of Elohim and have experienced this shining that has happened to all men. What does it say in verse 12 here?
Instructing us to renounce wickedness and worldly lust and to live sensibly, righteously, and reverently in the present age.
Right now. He didn't come to cause you to think about how you were supposed to be later on. He came and instructed us to renounce wickedness and worldly lust and live sensibly and righteously right now. So He was up in the temple, He seen them people, they was going through actions. They were just going through the motions. He said, nah, this ain't right. Y'all got to do something else. Because y'all supposed to be acting right now. And so when we think about our life in Messiah, this is not some theoretical thing that we, sometimes think about, but it's something that we should be cultivating within ourselves and allowing the Ruach HaKodesh to work on the inside of us, to not just know about righteousness and not to just know about living sensibly, but living in a particular way, even just right now. Okay, read some more of that, 13 through 15.
Looking for the blessed expectation and esteemed appearance of the great Elohim and our Savior, Yeshua Messiah, who gave Himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness, and to cleanse for himself a people, his own possession, ardent for good works.
Wait a second. Ardent for good works. Is that zealous? That's zealousness. That's what he was manifesting over there. Well, how was that? How many times you looked at some wickedness and just was like, shaking my head, and then it just went on?
Yeah.
Is that being ardent for good works? Is that being zealous for the things that are of the Most High? He could have looked at that and like, man, them people tripping, and just been, that's it.
Yeah.
But whenever he did what he did, it caused the disciples to look back, and they said, "Ah, you know what? This thing that he's sitting up here doing, make me think about Psalm 69:9, where it said, "The ardor of your house has eaten me up. The zealousness of your house has eaten me up." When you look at some wickedness, when you look at some debauchery, if people that's supposed to be doing that is one thing. Like if I expect for a dog to walk and bark and a cat to meow and purr, but I expect for the righteous to be righteous.
Yeah.
And so if I'm in the place of righteousness, which is in the presence of somebody who's a believer in the Most High, and what I'm seeing is debauchery and wickedness, I got this thing. I got John chapter 2 and 13 through 22 happening all over again. Maybe I'm not whipping them, but I'm saying some words. Go ahead.
I mean, people always say only God can judge me. But, if you're in the household of faith, you're going to be judged.
You're going to be judged.
And so there'll be other people that's going to be bringing that up when you're wrong. Saying, like, no, that's not the way it is.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And so, let's go back. Let's go back over here. We're gonna get ready to. We're not gonna sit up here and go too much more. Let me go back over to. Hold on 1 second here. Let's go back to John, because we want to make sure that we deal with all of the things here that Messiah brings out here. So far, when we think about these verses over here, we see the fact that we look at the way that he's dealing with these people, not only at the temple, but at a particular time. It's Pesach. We see that Messiah here is acting in the role of judge. And again, we think about us in Messiah and Messiah in us. There's times when we have to allow Messiah in us to manifest judgment to a situation, as Messiah exemplifies right over here. When we see over here, if we go down, we see in verse 17 that there's zealousness involved in things of the Most High. We got to be zealous about the things of the kingdom. Right? We see that over here. But not only that, the last thing I want to talk about, this other thing here. Read this last few verses here, 18 down through the end here.
And the Yehudim answered and said to him, "What sign do you show to us since you are doing these?" Yeshua answered and said to them, "Destroy this dwelling place, and in 3 days I shall raise it." Then the Yehudim said, "It took 46 years to build this dwelling place, and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But he spoke about the dwelling place of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his taught ones remembered that he said this to them. and they believed the scripture and the word which Yeshua had said.
Okay, very good. This is something that when it happened, the disciples didn't even catch it. It was all the way till he died and rose from the dead that they even understood what had happened over here. What had happened. He already lived. This is the beginning of his ministry here. He lived his years on this earth, did all that he did, died and rose again. So they was like, hold on. Remember that time when Yeshua was over there flipping tables and was talking about the temple being torn down and raising back up in 3 days? Remember he said that? He was talking about himself whenever that happened. It took them all that time to see what Paul talks to us later about the body in the temple, about this thing that the body represents, and he also talking to them really about resurrection. When you talk about this temple you're talking about this temple raising up, that it took decades.
They was like so literal. They can't understand it.
Right, but the thing about it is that when you think about it, it's a miraculous thing. Even if you was to just think about it from a physical standpoint, how you gonna build something that took what do it say? 46 years to build in 3 days. But even just so that's just as miraculous as somebody raising from the dead. I done built some things now. I done been involved in building some things. You ain't building no structure in no 3 days. Them houses ain't worth nothing.
I'm about to say China will be the closest thing you can see.
I'm saying if you got a modular something that's already halfway built and you putting it together, Legos, that's nothing.
No,
If you got a modular something, but if you're talking about from scratch, 3 days, nah.
China.
No, we're gonna have to see some receipts on that.
I'm just.
We're gonna have to see some receipts on that. Because anything that's quick, I don't want it. Microwave, I need that thing to be slow cooked in a slow cooker, or high pressure in the pressure cooker. But we see Messiah over here speaking about resurrection, right? He's talking to them about resurrection, and he's talking to them about, one of the key components of faith in him. So it's interesting when we look at these kind of in the closing down here. It's interesting when we look at these words of Messiah, all of these lessons that he's really talking without teaching. He taught his disciples something, and he wasn't even trying to do it.
He didn't go to that first deal for the house.
Nah, what he was doing caused them to think about that. But the simple fact that it caused them to think about that helps for us to understand how we're supposed to be in this life. We got to be about his business. We have to be about expanding the kingdom. We have to be, this has to be the thing that this is our very purpose in life is expanding the kingdom. To whatever degree it is that you do it. But at the end of the day, what your purpose is that. Different people have different degrees. And I don't mean letters, I mean different degrees of, intensities, levels. But it's the same end. At the end of the day, the thing that you're doing should be drawing people closer to the master. At the end of the day, the thing that you're doing should be causing people to move further away from the world and closer to Messiah. And so when we look at Messiah here, this is what he's doing. He's bringing correction to people who should be walking in rightness. He's bringing light to a place where light should already be. And so, it helps for us to be able to understand in a better way, I would say, that, everything that we do, he went up there he didn't go up there for that, but he saw a need and he addressed it. He saw something that needed to happen and he allowed the Spirit of the Most High to move him in that way. And so, likewise, we need to be about the Most High's business in such a way that when we see something that needs to be addressed, we need to address those things because, a missed opportunity, you never get that back. Okay, what do we have over here just lastly? I didn't see this here. This was Yeshua's temple, his father's house. He had to rightly judge and beat down the flesh that was attempting to set up shop and operate within his temple. We must do the same with ourselves. Yes, hallelujah. Okay, does anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments before we go ahead and are finished here for today?
Sorry, Gus. Your daughter.
You got your hand raised? What'd you try to say? Okay. Okay,
Me
very
too.
good.
I was like, what already got to say?
All right, that's fine. Okay, so that being said, for now, I guess we'll be done for now, y'all willing. Everyone have a blessed rest of the Shabbat. And
Bye week next week.
next week, I'm probably still going to put something up, but I don't know if it'll be live. Won't be live, but there will be something up on the channel. Y'all willing. Y'all willing. Okay, so that being said, we'll say for now, Shabbat Shalom.
Hello.
Shabbat Shalom.